Have you ever wondered why World War II is considered the deadliest conflict in human history? This war, spanning from 1939 to 1945, was a global conflict that truly lived up to its name, with over 30 countries, including major powers like the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, involved in the war effort. This was a war fought on multiple continents, in the air, on land, and at sea. It was a war that saw the deployment of unprecedented military technology and strategies. The estimated death toll is staggering, with over 75 million lives lost. That's roughly 3% of the world's population at that time. This conflict reshaped the world, leaving enduring impacts that can still be felt today. It's a period of history that's been extensively studied, yet many stories remain untold. So, join me as we journey through the key events of this global conflict. It all started on a fateful day in September 1939. Germany, under the dictatorship of Adolf Hitler, launched an unprovoked invasion of Poland. This aggressive act, fueled by a misguided belief in racial superiority and territorial expansion, marked the ominous beginning of World War II. Poland, despite its valiant resistance, was overwhelmed by the Blitzkrieg tactics of the German forces. This swift and brutal invasion shocked the world, triggering a chain reaction of alliances and declarations of war. Britain and France, bound by treaties to Poland, declared war on Germany, escalating the conflict on an unimaginable scale. The invasion of Poland was not just a military assault, it was a ruthless demonstration of Hitler's intentions, a chilling display of the new face of warfare, and a grim foreshadowing of the atrocities to come. And thus, the world was plunged into a war unlike any seen before. Following Poland's fall, the Axis powers set their sights on Western Europe. Their weapon of choice was a strategy known as Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. It was a tactic designed to create disarray among enemy forces through surprise attacks and rapid, overwhelming force. The idea was simple: strike hard, strike fast, and leave your enemy no time to react. The Blitzkrieg descended on Western Europe like a storm. The Netherlands and Belgium fell in a matter of days. France, the linchpin of European defense, was next. Despite its formidable Maginot Line, the country crumbled under the German onslaught in less than 2 months. The phony war was over, and the real war had begun in earnest. While France capitulated across the Channel, Britain stood alone, resolute. The Battle of Britain was about to begin. The German Luftwaffe sought to gain air superiority, launching relentless bombing raids, but the British Royal Air Force fought back with grit and determination. Britain, though battered, refused to break. The island nation held its ground, marking the first major check to the seemingly invincible German war machine. Meanwhile, the darkest chapter in human history was unfolding. The Holocaust had begun. Across Europe, Jews were being systematically persecuted. Concentration camps sprouted like grotesque mushrooms across the continent, symbols of a chilling, industrialized genocide. This was not just a war for territory, it was a war against humanity itself. Yet there was a glimmer of hope. The United States, though still neutral, began to provide aid to the Allies. And in the East, the Soviet Union was watching, its own plans quietly taking shape. The world watched in horror as the war escalated, with the Axis powers seemingly unstoppable. Yet beneath the surface, the tide was slowly beginning to turn. In June 1941, Hitler made a decision that would change the course of the war. This was the start of Operation Barbarosa, a bold and ambitious campaign where Germany sought to seize control of the Soviet Union. It was the largest military operation in human history, both in terms of manpower and casualties. The goal was straightforward. Hitler sought to secure the vast resources of the Soviet Union and to crush communism, which he viewed as a threat to the Nazi ideology. But the execution was anything but simple. The German forces faced a formidable enemy and a harsh environment, compounded by the vastness of the Soviet territory. The initial stages of Operation Barbarossa were marked by a series of rapid victories for the Germans. The Red Army was caught off guard and suffered immense losses. But as the German forces pushed deeper into Soviet territory, they were stretched thin and their supply lines became vulnerable. Despite the initial success, the German forces were not prepared for the brutal Russian winter. The harsh weather conditions, combined with the fierce resistance of the Soviet forces, culminated in a disastrous situation for the Germans. The siege of Moscow, intended to be the final blow to the Soviet Union, turned into a costly failure. Hitler's gamble had backfired. The failed operation marked a significant turning point in World War II. The Red Army began to push back, gradually regaining lost territory. It became clear that Germany was not invincible, and the myth of their unstoppable Blitzkrieg was shattered. The failure of Operation Barbarosa also led to a shift in alliances. The Soviet Union joined the Allies, and together they began to tip the balance of power. The once seemingly unstoppable German war machine was now on the defensive. Operation Barbarossa was a lesson in overreach and the perils of underestimating your enemy. Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union, driven by ideological fervor and strategic miscalculations, ultimately cost him the war. It was now clear that the tide of the war was turning against the Axis powers. With the Axis powers on the back foot, it was time for the Allies to strike back. This marked the beginning of what we know as the Allied Offensive, a series of strategic military operations designed to push back and ultimately defeat the Axis powers. One of the most significant events during this phase was D-Day. On the 6th of June 1944, Allied forces executed the largest seaborne invasion in history along the beaches of Normandy, France. This operation was pivotal in establishing a strong Western front, disrupting the Axis stranglehold in Europe. The invasion of Normandy was a turning point, but the road to liberation was far from over. The Allies advanced, liberating Paris in August and Brussels in September. By May 1945, after a long and brutal winter campaign, the Allies had successfully pushed into Germany, culminating in the capture of Berlin and the surrender of Nazi Germany. However, the war was not yet over. The Pacific War still raged on. The United States, determined to bring a swift end to the conflict, made the fateful decision to drop 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The devastating impact of these bombings led to Japan's surrender, but at a grave human cost. These decisive Allied victories were not achieved without immense sacrifice. Millions of soldiers and civilians lost their lives in this horrific conflict, a reality we must never forget. The Allied offensive was not just a series of military operations, it was a testament to human resilience and the collective will to fight against tyranny. World War II finally ended in September 1945, marking a new era of peace and rebuilding. The world had changed dramatically and the task ahead was monumental. But, as history has shown us, humanity has a remarkable capacity to rise from the ashes, to rebuild and to grow stronger. This resilience is perhaps the most enduring legacy of World War II. The end of the war was just the beginning of a new world order. As the dust settled on the battlefields, the world began to grapple with the aftermath of the most devastating conflict in human history. The war had left an indelible mark on every continent, every country, every city, and every home. The scars were deep, and the healing slow and painful. But amidst the ruins, the seeds of a new world order were planted. In the wake of the war, nations united to form a global organization, the United Nations. Born out of the desire to prevent another devastating war, the United Nations aimed to promote peace, foster international cooperation, and address economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian problems. It was a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by conflict, a testament to the belief that unity could triumph over division and peace over war. But even as the world sought to heal, new conflicts began to take shape. The wartime alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union crumbled, giving way to an era of geopolitical tension known as the Cold War. Ideological differences fueled a race for global dominance, pitting capitalism against communism, democracy against totalitarianism. The world was divided into 2 opposing blocs, each vying for influence and control. The war had ended, but the struggle for power continued. The effects of the war extended far beyond politics and power dynamics. Societies were transformed, economies were rebuilt, technologies were advanced, and cultures were forever altered. The world map was redrawn, and new nations emerged from the ashes of old empires. The war had brought untold destruction, but it also sparked a period of extraordinary change and progress. The aftermath of World War II was a time of great upheaval and transformation. It was a time of loss and recovery, of conflict and cooperation, of change and continuity. It was a time that shaped the world as we know it today, a time that continues to influence our present and our future. And so, the world was forever changed by the events of World War II. So what can we learn from this devastating conflict? The echoes of World War II continue to resonate in our world today. Its lessons are as relevant now as they were in the mid-20th century. This cataclysmic event underlines the importance of diplomacy, international cooperation, and mutual respect among nations. It reminds us of the dire consequences when these principles are disregarded. World War II changed the course of history, shaping the geopolitical landscape and influencing international relations. It was a stark reminder of the destructive potential of human conflict and the importance of working towards peace. This war has taught us the value of unity in adversity, the power of resilience, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. It's shown us the dangers of extremism and the need for vigilance in preserving our freedoms. The lessons of World War II are not just pages in a history book. They are living reminders of our past, guiding our present and shaping our future. Remember, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Until next time, keep exploring and keep questioning.